Alright, to start off, could you just tell us who you are, what you do, and actually what that entails?
Okay, well, my name is Peanut, because I have an anaphylactic reaction to peanuts, and I am a producer and songwriter, and was an artist of sorts. And basically, what my job is to help artists who come into the studio who are signed and some who are not signed, and help create with them and help finish off their songs, kind of giving people guidance. That's basically what it is, whether it's writing or production, and production is kind of more to do with sounds as opposed to song structures and all that.
Okay, great.
An average week is basically coming in the studio every day and getting on with the matter in hand, which might be working on tracks for a band, it might be doing beats to pitch to artists like, I don't know, like Madonna or Britney or pop, things like that, or it might be working with an unsigned band who I think are good and they need some help and stuff. So the week is always me in here.
Right.
And if I'm not in this studio, I'm in another studio.
Okay.
It doesn't really get any further afield than that.
Right, okay. What's the best thing about being Peanut?
In terms of music, in terms of the music.
In terms of anything, what's the best thing about being you?
I think the best for me is getting a natural buzz off, or a natural high off the music. When I'm really enjoying something, I suddenly remember that's why I'm doing all of this. Not for any accolades, if you ever get any, not for any money, just for the high and the enjoyment of it, basically.
Okay, that's great. Could you tell us sort of a bit about your journey, how it all started, where you got your love and your passion for the music, and then how you've gone from there to end up on that chair today?
Okay. I think I come from a musical family. Mother's a singer, my uncle's a conductor, and the same for generations and generations. But I think growing up as a kid, my old man had loads of different music, jazz, folk, reggae, a lot of ska, and it was a natural thing to pick up an instrument in the house because there were always instruments. And then I ended up getting an apprenticeship at a studio in Dalston, which was a reggae studio. But people who used to come over from Jamaica, like Junior Delgado and Freddie McGregor, and we used to work on a lot of old Studio One tapes and stuff. And I think that was I was maybe 19, 20. I think that was my first proper. I'd always been in studios since I was 14 or 15, but that was my first big thing where I had an apprenticeship, basically. And I had that for 4 years or so, and in the time I worked up from being like a lackey, just going to get people food, making tea, to then recording vocals and then mixing tracks, and then I got given a record label through this studio's record label, and then I ended up putting out some records myself, and then finding some kids who were like 16 and 17 and started recording them and doing my own thing and trying to just, you know, you kind of absorb what's around you and then just regurgitate your version of it, basically, and that's kind of what I was doing. And then I think I needed to grow, basically, and the studio was it was too much the same all the time. I learned so much, but I still feel I wanted more, so I got a job with a band called Incognito in Islington at their studio again, but then it was like, because I'd had my own record label and was an engineer, I had to then step back to being an assistant again, which was making tea, but it was cool because I was learning. It's like a next level. I was learning. It was kind of professional now. I was learning a lot more. It was a lot harder work, and I kind of stopped doing music for myself and stopped having my record label, and I think I was with them for 6 months, and then there was a studio opposite called Swan-Yard Studios, and I really wanted a job there, I really wanted an apprenticeship, or to be the T-boy there, and I bugged them, and I became friends with the head engineer there, and he got me the job there, and then I was there for 2 years working for, I don't know, it was like Pet Shop Boys sessions, Faithless, U2, like a lot of big pop bands basically. And again, it kept on being like from studio to studio is another level, harder work, stepping down to being an apprentice again, learning, and then while I was at this studio I started making music again for myself, and there was a producer next door called Rollo Armstrong, and he came in because I was actually on his session, and he asked me for a cup of tea, but I had my gear set up in the studio too, because one of the main things at these big old studios was when there was free, you could get free time basically, so if you were an assistant you'd get downtime, so if no one was in one of the studios you could have it for yourself. So when people went in, I used to, or whoever would, set up their own gear and do whatever they were doing, and I was meant to be making tea for this session, but I'd actually thought, fuck that, I'm going to go into the studio and carry on making my beats. And he came in looking for me, why wasn't I making him tea, and he heard this thing I was doing, and he said, is this you? And I was like, yeah, and then he offered me a record deal then and there. So that was, I think, I suddenly realised I could actually maybe not make a living, but have a life out of this. I think the things that inspire me it's the people you're working with, it's your environment around you. So in all this, pretty much everybody I've worked with, I've been lucky to basically get something from them. They inspire me, the situation inspires me. I don't really, I listen to a lot of music, but I don't really get buzzed up by other people's tunes which are out there, or what other producers are doing, no matter how good they are or anything like that. What I really get inspired off is the situation I'm in with an individual or a band or whoever it is, and trying to create something.
Could you name or share 3 things that are indispensable to you as a producer-songwriter?
In terms of a mechanical...
In terms of...
actually physically doing it. For me, the main thing is the sequencer, which is Logic, basically, because that pretty much enables me to do anything I want, and it's one universal workstation which is on my computer and I can take anywhere, whether it's a laptop or whatever, go to another studio. It's used in all studios as well, and that, I think, is probably the key for me for everything. Obviously you need people around you to operate it, so they're equally as important, and the musicians and the writers and all that kind of stuff, but in terms of a piece of gear, that is probably at the moment everything I need.
Would you give some advice to young people who are maybe thinking about getting into it?
Okay, I think my advice is, well, like, experience everything, like the good things and the bad things, because then you're going to actually learn about it. So the knockbacks just make you stronger and more determined, and also, and it's a constant basically. It's not like it's a rise all the time or a fall, it's up and down basically. And I think one of the things is, like, if you're starting off, or or it doesn't, or however old you are, you just got to believe in yourself and just know what you're doing is right for yourself. You do it for yourself, you're fine, and don't have too many like aspirations to fame or wealth or anything like that. Just because those are trappings of it. I think the most important thing is about the music and is about you, whether you're a singer, writer, producer, whatever, actually creating something yourself. And I think it's just it's a struggle, but it's a great one, and it's like you should never give up. It's almost like success is buried in the garden of failure, basically. The more you fail at it, the more you struggle, the better you become, and the more determined you are that you're going to make it.
If that was an original line, that was great. And if you stole it from someone, it was still great.
I don't know if there's one particular defining moment which I'm aware of that has enabled me to be where I am today. I think there's a lot of different things which have happened. You know, I can think of big moments like being offered a record deal, and then having like my first track cut by Santana, and then you know, like getting publishing deals, all these kind of things. They're just part and parcel of other things which have happened before for me rather. Even I think maybe defining moment is buying my first record when I was 7, maybe that, you know, buying my first guitar. All the things add up to where I am now.
Is there one learning experience that you could perhaps share with us?
Yep.
Again, it would benefit people that are thinking about getting into the business.
I think, well, okay, there is one experience, and I think it's about taking opportunities, like whatever arises, no matter how small or large. If you want to do this, you should just grab every opportunity you can. And I remember one particular episode was maybe 5-6 years ago. I was in kind of a whirlwind of having some tracks with Dido, which was successful, having my own record, which was on Sony. I was in the midst of doing that, and a lot of things were happening in my life, and a particular singer came in the studio from the States, and is a big artist, and I didn't really want to work with him. I didn't want him in the studio actually at all. I was kind of being a bit too big-headed. Like he was a pop singer, and I thought, I'm far too good for this kind of shit. And anyway, he wanted some beats off me for his new record, and I played him some, and he picked 2, so I had to run him off a CD, and I thought, actually, you know what? And he was actually going back to America that day, so the next thing, he was taking the beats, going back to the States, writing on them, and then I was going to come over there, do a session, and finish the tracks off. And he picked 2 beats, wanted a CD, and I thought, you know what, I'm too good for this, and I gave him a blank CD, and then he went back to the States. And then the album, which came out a year later, was a massive hit. Now, the songs might not have been on there, they might not have been good enough, but basically I totally cut my nose off to spite my face, because I thought I was too good for the opportunity. And you know, whether it doesn't matter, you know, success is success, or you know, working, it's all the same thing. You can't like knock things because you think you're better than that. Whether you should just take every opportunity, and I didn't take that opportunity. I definitely regret it. Yeah.
Can you tell us about your music heroes, heroines, and
Okay.
what it is about them that gives them that position in your life?
Okay, music heroines and heroes. I can't really think of, like, I've got a lot of things people I really admire, but old producers like King Tubby and Phil Pratt and Jammies, wish it all Jamaican producers, but then I like things like Duke Ellington, a lot of jazz, a lot of rock. I like anything. I collect records basically, so I'll try and absorb anything I possibly can. I can't remember the rest of the question again.
But again, it's just heroes, heroines,
oh, right, yeah,
and
exactly.
what it is about.
Oh right, okay. It's just inspiration. You know, it's just what I get of. I don't really follow one particular person, or whatever I can get off a recording, I'll have and take and get inspiration off it somehow, and then I'll find something else. Basically, I don't really have to aspire to be anybody, and I don't really have one person who I really take everything from. I think the people who've really inspired me are the people I've worked with, like Rollo Armstrong did, this guy called Dougie Wardrop, who used to have a studio in Dalston, Bluey from Incognito did, you know, a lot of it's people who've inspired me are people who I've had personal interaction with, basically. Yeah.
Right. Hello, Michael.
I think one of like a negative thing was and is when
Okay, cool. I'm doing an interview now, and I'm going to do one more.
like I had a record out and I had to end up taking the artists to court to get my publishing, and then I ended up getting banned from the record label because I'd had to fight my corner basically and not give up. And I think there's a lot of negative things in the music industry. It's totally cutthroat basically. People are outright for themselves, but you can meet a lot of nice people. I can't think of anything else to say.
Yeah. Anything else that you'd like to add, or you think would be useful to a young person who's got any kind of interest in the music business that hasn't been covered by the questions already?
Okay, I think some people have a trepidation about their first move, like they want to do things, they've got talent, but they don't know how to physically get into it. And I think you've got to just phone people, hassle people, just try and make personal contacts with people, no matter how small they are, you know, even if they're people who turn you down, just to get yourself out there basically. You know, if you want to be a producer or a writer, all these things, and don't stop on your first knockback, just keep on going basically. I don't know where the level is where you meet the contact which sorts you out for a year or the rest of your life or whatever. I don't think there's any right or wrong way of doing it, other than your own personal way, which is working your arse off, basically. Cool.
Well, Mr. Peanut, I'd like to thank you for